What is up, Big 12 Nation? It is Tuesday. You know what that means. It's time for the one, the only, Biggest 12. Thank you so much for joining me here. It's Clint Foster, your host. You know me. Hopefully you love me. Hopefully that's why you keep coming back. We got a great show for you today. Two exciting guests as we get prepped for the Sunflower Showdown. I'm not going to waste too much more time. Just go ahead and welcome these guys in before I start having the whole subscribe talk. I got John Grove from Kansas State and Austin Eckert from Kansas on behalf of the Wildcats and the Jayhawks. Boys, thank you so much for being with me here this evening.
Absolutely.
Appreciate the opportunity to be on your show today.
Yeah, absolutely. So, hey, please do like and subscribe and share the show. We're trying to grow the Biggest 12. We're trying to grow the show. It's at Big 12 VOCFB. We're here every Tuesday night. My show isn't even the only one on the channel. So there's plenty of reasons to keep coming back for more and more content here on the Voice of College Football. Also, do please subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't already. That's at Clint Foster Comedy. Follow me on Twitter at Clint_Foster55. Do all the things and follow these guys as well. They'll obviously have a time to plug all of their great work that they do on the interwebs. But boys, we got a fun week coming up. A lot of big games, a lot of rivalry games too on the Big 12 slate. We will get into fully previewing Kansas and Kansas State, but what are your overall thoughts on the way the Big 12 has shaken out this year and the way it could very easily come down to the wire in these next 2 weeks?
Austin, you can go ahead first if you like.
Okay, sure. Yeah, it's been a very crazy year in the Big 12, I will say. I honestly didn't expect Kansas to be sitting here at 7-3 this far in the season. Obviously, we'll get into all that later on. But I'm just surprised with how evenly matched, every single game has been. Cincinnati picked up their first Big 12 win last week over Houston. And, UCF beat Oklahoma State by however many points, 42 points. I mean, no one expected that to happen. There's just been a lot of, really good games over the course of the season. And I think the Big 12 has shown that, hey, any team can beat anyone in this conference.
Absolutely. You're right, man. You're right. This is going to be a fun conference for several years to come. John, what are your thoughts?
Austin mentioned it right off the bat. The conference just has a lot of parity. You want to just talk about top to bottom with several of the top teams just getting the best from several of the teams, even from the bottom, who don't have an opportunity at becoming bowl eligible. It's hectic. I mean, it's a dog-on-dog world in the Big 12. You have to be on your A game in order to succeed. And we've seen for several games already that there might be a team at the top or so that are just not performing up to their standard, and they just get pummeled by 5-7, 6-6 team that's kind of ranked on the bottom of the Big 12 as well. So it's a crazy conference. It's going to get even more insane next year with the four corner schools joining as well. So I'm looking forward to that. But we still got a season to finish, and it's still got a lot of parity at the top. Some teams are still trying to get bowl eligible. It's going to be interesting to see how things finish out.
Yeah, absolutely. We could very easily have a world where we have I think a four-way tie is very much in the cards for second place. And then how are those tiebreakers going to shake out? What's going to decide whether it's Oklahoma State or Oklahoma or Kansas State? I mean, things could get very, very crazy. And I, for one, being in my full-on Schadenfreude, being a TCU fan, I'm just I'm delighting in the suffering of everyone else. I'm like, let's let this thing get as chaotic and messy as possible. As long as we can keep either OU or Texas out of the Big 12 title game, that's what I'm interested in, for sure. Keep those losers out. Okay, so let's spend a little time talking about the week that was. I got the TCU hat on. We might as well commiserate, or y'all aren't commiserating, maybe laugh at my misery. Yet another extremely frustrating loss for the Frogs after a decade and a half of dominance against those daggum Longhorns. We come up short 29-26 in a game that featured a furious fourth quarter comeback, 20 points in the fourth quarter. Easily could have been 22 if they would have called a pass interference on a 2-point conversion in which Savion was held pretty egregiously. But that was a game where the Frogs just made too many mistakes. You really could say it all came down to an interception in the second quarter that was then fumbled and gave Texas a new set of downs right back at the original line of scrimmage. If that's not emblematic of TCU's season, I honestly don't know what is. We also had Texas ends up preserving the win with an absolute duck of a pass on 3rd and 12 to get a first down. If Avery Helm turns around and looks at that ball, maybe things are different. But did either of you boys catch that Texas TCU game?
Oh boy. I might have. I will admit, full transparency. I kind of logged off when Texas was up by 15 plus points there for a second, and it was kind of late in the game as well. I wasn't expecting for TCU to come back. I kind of turned my head towards the BYU Iowa State game, but late in the contest, TCU looked resilient. At first they looked dead in the water. You look back to one play late in the first quarter and just seemed to sap all the momentum from TCU, and then all of a sudden they just eventually pick up at the end. They got things moving. What is his name? Imani Bailey. He scored a rushing touchdown. J.P. Richardson, he caught Josh Hoover's touchdown pass. TCU stopped turning the ball over, which killed them in the first half. But Texas got the big plays when they needed the most. They got one, and it was towards A.D. Mitchell on a 3rd and 12, which that was an underthrown pass, but nonetheless, it was a very impressive grab as well. I was a little bit flabbergasted when he managed to came up with that. So Texas can't keep getting away with this.
They can't keep getting away with it. Yes.
But nonetheless, Texas's offense is loaded. And I'm sure we'll get to it here in a second with several of the injury concerns with Jonathan Brooks now that he's out for the season. But Texas has 2 games and they're pretty much in. It's going to be a little bit difficult coming up with Iowa State, but you got one of the difficult road games out of the way against a determined TCU team that was ready to. That's had Texas's number as of late and wanted to beat Texas. I say we're heading out to the SEC as well. So Texas got that out of the way. We'll see what they do in Ames this weekend.
Yeah, Joe.
I didn't get to catch. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just asking if you had any thoughts on it.
Oh, yeah. I didn't get a chance to watch the game, but I knew that TCU had a little bit of a chance just because it was a night game, and games like that on the road are always tough to come out with a win. So I had a feeling that it was going to be somewhat of a close game. I didn't get to see the ending until later. But yeah, TCU had every chance they could to win that game, but somehow Texas held on and won that. And then obviously John brought up Jonathan Brooks' injury. Yeah, it's a big blow for the Longhorns, but they got C.J. Baxter and Kalian Robinson back there. I think they'll be just fine in the running game. But I think Quinn Ewers coming back too was huge for the Longhorns. I don't know if Malik Murphy would have done that well last week, but I thought he played really good whenever he had to step in with Ewers' injury. But I think Ewers, coming back last week, honestly kind of made the difference because, when you have your starting quarterback, back in the, on the field with you, it gives you a little bit of more confidence. So I knew it was going to be close, but I didn't expect it to be a 3-point game.
Yeah, I was extremely grumpy at the time, right? I was very salty for like the next 24 hours, but there's a lot of good things still to come out of that game. It was a really great crowd on hand. We had 50,000 people there for a 4-win TCU team, and there were positives that came out of the second half. Offense finally clicking. Imani Bailey, despite you mentioned it, John, he only had 4 carries in the first half. Arguably the best player on our offense had 4 carries in the first half, but he got going in the second half. Savion Williams had the breakout game that TCU fans have been waiting for. Should be able to get off the schneid this week, hopefully, for God's sake. And then you got a really interesting last game against Oklahoma to see if we can get bowl eligible. So let's move on. Austin, let's keep it with you. Let's talk about the Jayhawks and Kansas. What happened? Texas Tech comes in, who I guess can't do anything, right? The Raiders are determined to make sure that we have a Texas and OU Big 12 championship, I guess, beating Kansas 16-13. Austin, what in the world went wrong?
Well, first off, before we get into the game, I grew up in Lubbock, so I grew up wearing the red and black, by the way. So it was a very weird feeling. I actually had the opportunity to broadcast the game on radio for our student radio station at KJHK. So I was definitely thankful for that opportunity. It was, that game in particular meant a little bit more to me since I was born down the street from Tech, right down the street from their basketball arena. Down there in Lubbock. So I obviously have a connection there. Still have a lot of family down there in Lubbock, and I'm actually going to go down there next Wednesday. So it'll be great to go back down to the 806 and spend a few days down there. But
where'd you go
going
to high
into the
school,
game,
out of curiosity? I mean, where'd you go to high school?
I went to Lee Summit North High School over in Lee Summit, Missouri. I moved to Kansas City right before my freshman year of high school.
Gotcha. Okay, well, cool to meet an expat. Anyway, so keep going.
All right. No, you're all good. Yeah, it was a very tough day. It was a tough day for all the Jayhawk faithful. Everyone expected Kansas to come out victorious that day by, maybe a possession or two. I knew that Texas Tech was better than the 4-5 record that they came in with. I said it all week long. Like, they have one of the best running backs in the country. And Taj Brooks, he got a few really good carries early on, and then I think the Jayhawk defense kind of caught on to the run game, and they're like, all right, I think we know what they're trying to do, because they like to run the ball a lot on first and second down before they do a little bit of play action on third down. I've kind of noticed that in their scheme. They also have a really good quarterback in Baron Morton, who came back from a shoulder injury against TCU 2 weeks ago and had that performance. And then I thought he played decent. I think the Jayhawk secondary kind of did a good job of not creating much separation from them and the receivers. And then we had the interception in the second quarter. But losing quarterback Jason Bean, I think it really hurt us in the end. I thought Cole Ballard, the freshman quarterback, stepped in and did a nice job. He did what he could. A fun fact, he's also the son of Chris Ballard, the Colts GM. So I didn't know that until yesterday when I was reading through the game notes for this week's game. And it's like, oh, okay. Because I was trying to, I knew that there was a Ballard up there. Like, someone had said it before, and I was like, is that true? Because when I saw a picture of Cole Ballard, I was like, he looks exactly like Chris Ballard. I'm gonna look it up, and I was right. So. But anyways, I thought he did a nice job. He had some quarterback runs too for a couple of first downs that I think really got the crowd engaged. So I thought that was exciting to watch. He had some really nice throws. He had one throw to I think it was Torrey Laughlin in the second quarter. He proved on Saturday that he's capable of throwing the ball all around the field and getting the ball out to his receivers. And, obviously we'll get into the keys of the game, for us, going into our matchup on Saturday. Thought he did what he could. The defense, though, for Kansas, I thought they played excellent. They didn't have the greatest start to the game, but they finished strong. They were able to contain Taj Brooks, as I mentioned, and they were able to break up a few passes in the secondary. And then, in the last drive of the game, obviously, wasn't, everyone wants to look at that and go, oh, yeah, they didn't play well because they gave up that play that set up the game-winning field goal. But, I think that drive ultimately, didn't really determine, the success that they had on defense. I thought they did a great job offensively. It was very frustrating to watch. The one play in particular that frustrated me the most from Saturday was that 4th down and goal call when we were up 10-0 in the second quarter. We were at the 1 yard line. We line up in the pistol, hand the ball off, -5 yards, turnover on downs. I just don't understand why we had Cole Ballard lining up in the pistol formation like that. I disagreed with that. It made me very infuriated. I actually called the first half of the game, and my color guy, so after I announced what had happened, he literally stood next to me and said, "What is KU doing right now? What are you doing lined up in the pistol?" He went off, and I had to tell him, hey, calm down. Don't get rattled up. He was a freshman, so this was his first football game, so I had to be like, hey, we need to tone that down a little bit, okay? We're not fans, okay? This is professional stuff, so let's keep it as professional as we can. All right. So
I know exactly how he feels at times, because you just want to sometimes unleash your inner fan when it comes to broadcasting games. It's like when you observe something not going right, you just want to call them out and yell. Yeah, like yell just like a complete nitwit in the student section or anywhere else in the stadium. But sometimes you got to keep it cool, got to keep your limits sometimes when it comes to broadcasting and journalism. So.
Right.
I will say, though, as a color analyst, you have a little more freedom in that regard. Usually, especially if it's on KU radio, I feel like you're not getting a lot of like, how is it that he's upset? Like if you're
right,
you kind of expect it a little bit.
Yeah, no, he did a really good job, calling the game. He did the second half, and I thought he killed it. He got the 60-yard touchdown run, which I was a little bit jealous, but he got to call the crazy ending to that one. But that loss really stung us. It was disappointing, especially with how the game played out. I legitimately thought at points during the game that they actually still had a chance to win it, just because of how good they were playing defensively. There was just some calls that were made on offense that I just didn't agree with, and I think ended up costing us at the very end. So disappointing loss, but I know the team practiced literally the next day. They practiced on Sunday. I don't know if they practiced yesterday, but I believe they returned to practice today, took Monday off. But Coach Leipold was like, yeah, we're practicing on Sunday, and we're going to go from there. So because what he's trying to do, is like, hey, like, yes, that loss sucked, but like we gotta move on from it. Now we need to learn from it. I'm not saying like, forget about what happened. No, it's just like you got to learn what happened and then just move on from it and just focus on who you're playing this week. And I think that's why we practiced on Sunday, which I really liked. And then some of the comments that Coach Leipold said after the game, he kind of acknowledged that, like, KU had, success in the past 2 weeks, beating Oklahoma and beating Iowa State. But, he also said, like, hey, like, we are, we're not quite at the point to where we're able to sustain success. Like, he talked about, going from like A to like D, if that makes any sense, instead of, going A, B, C, and D, rather going from A to D. When by that, I mean, like, going from 2 and 10 all the way to the college football playoff, like some fans are talking about, because next year, I believe they're expanding the college football playoff to 12 teams, and Kansas was put at number 16 last week. So, I mean, if the trajectory of this program continues to go upward, I don't see why there's a chance that they wouldn't make it. But that being said, like, I think this was a game where they were like, hey, like, Gotta tone it down. Maybe the tone of the locker room was, oh yeah, we beat Oklahoma and Iowa State, like Texas Tech 4-5. It's not a big deal, right? But I knew that this was going to be a game that Kansas could have easily lost if they didn't show up to play, and that's what happened. Give Tech credit. I thought they played really well defensively, especially up front. They were able to contain the running game really well, especially inside the red zone on those goal-to-goal situations. They dominated us up front, and it's simple as that.
It was a week of trap games. Well, let's move on, give John an opportunity to talk. Let's talk about the Kansas State Wildcats, who very much got back in the win column in a big way, playing the Baylor Bears, winning 59-25. Kansas State trying to, Longhorns notwithstanding, trying to lock up another Texas State championship, as they're so fond of doing. John, your thoughts on that big Kansas State blowout win over the Bears?
Well, actually, I mean, that is kind of interesting as well, because you want to talk about that Texas swing. I mean, we played 5 consecutive teams from the state of Texas, so it's just crazy to think about how the Big 12 schedule works here and there at times. But K-State, I mean, they ended any hope of whether it was a Baylor upset or Baylor going bowling just right out of the gates. They rolled to a 35-7 lead early in the second quarter. They just completely cruised for the most part. Will Howard led the offense. 5 touchdowns and a field goal. Some impressive throws helped K-State bounce back from a disappointing loss to Texas last week, in which K-State really had in the bag. If several play calls went their way, maybe some better play calls in the first quarter here and there. Avery Johnson also threw 1 touchdown pass, but really the K-State defense just also lit up the scoreboard with a pair of touchdowns, something that we haven't seen throughout the season for K-State. given that they were able to benefit off of turnovers, we didn't see that into play for first 3 games of the non-conference play. It seemed as if turnovers were non-existent, and then as the season's gone on, we start seeing more turnovers for K-State, for the K-State defense, I should say. And then all of a sudden, you get a scoop and score from Desmond Purnell off a fumble, and then you also get a pick six from Keenan Garber as well. But really, best of all for the Wildcats, I mean, you also had it was just overall a team effort. Like there wasn't really a side where it's like, oh, okay, this area was a little bit of a sign of weakness. This side was struggling too. I guess maybe the one thing you could possibly point out is special teams. I still think that area is a little bit shaky in regards to the field goal situation. But K-State looked good, and shout out to Will Howard as well. He broke the K-State touchdown record with 45 passing touchdowns, beating Josh Freeman, who was a first-round pick in the NFL draft.
Good old Josh Freeman.
Josh Freeman, man.
I've forgotten about Josh Freeman. The Buccaneers drafted him, wasn't that right?
Wait, yeah, I believe.
Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely. So
this is me being the old man in the room, right? Y'all are both still in. Oh,
I was way back in the Ron Prince days. The Will Howard, of course, he's been the leader for this team. He has been, especially throughout the past few games, where he has been the heart and soul for his team to come back in this contest to come back in the contest against Texas and to put up much better performances 2 weeks prior to that against TCU and Houston as well. But he's just shown a complete spark, especially with Avery Johnson kind of chiming in midway through the Big 12 season. Will Howard pretty much took it as, okay, I've got to step up my game at some point. But he broke the school record for career touchdown passes, 45. He beat Josh Freeman. He also beat the likes of Colin Klein, Michael Bishop as well, which he was also in attendance for that game. I got a photo with him. He was inducted into the College Football Hall of Fame as well. But it was clear early that Will Howard was going to do something special, and he just lit up Baylor in the first quarter. He never stopped leading the Wildcats into the end zone as well. You also had a few very impressive performances from DJ Gittens. He caught several balls in the flat and rumbled 18 yards for a score. You also had Christian Moore also getting a short pass. I believe that was his first touchdown as a Wildcat as well. And just several other big key contributions with the likes of Ben Sinnott, Trayshawn Ward. They're doing the dang thing on offense. It is like a locomotive. Baylor had no answers whatsoever. The defense is and the defense as well. We're just seeing significant improvements from Cody Stufflebean. I guess really the one concern, which we'll talk about a little bit, hitting into the matchup against Kansas is Jake Clifton going out with an injury. He's going to be out for the season. But he got injured against Baylor. But you also had Cooper Beebe, one of the offensive linemen. He made some pretty big statements on the defensive line too. Just kind of considering where the defense is at with several health concerns as well. But it was overall a great performance. And actually, one more thing to point out as well: Keenan Garber originally committed to play for K-State out of Lawrence. He did so as a receiver as well. That is where Keenan Garber played for the majority of his college career, and until he decided to give defense a try last season. He showed immediate promise as a cornerback. Now he's starting for the Wildcats as a key member of their defense. He's starting to make more big plays. His decision to switch positions has just completely paid off. I couldn't be more impressed with the way he's performed. I couldn't be more impressed with everybody else's performances as well. Then on the other side for Baylor, you got to be looking at this and thinking, how long is this going to work out for Dave Aranda? Because the Baylor squad, given Blake Shapen's pretty decent performance overall, they were just not toe-to-toe with K-State. Their defense was non-existent. Their offense and their offensive line in particular, they were just dealing with a lot of pressure. So Baylor, what's Baylor now? I think 3-7. 3-7. So I mean, they're 2 years following a Big 12 championship. They go to Terrible bowl. Well, the Armed Forces Bowl, but it's not the best bowl game out there.
That's a fine venue, okay?
It's a fine. It's a fine venue, though. I will admit, Amon Carter it's a pretty tight, but it's a really cool stadium. I really want to visit there too.
You got to, man.
It looks really cool. But but Baylor loses to Air Force. They dropped to 6-7 last year, and it hasn't gotten any better for the Bears this season. So it's going to be interesting to see what decisions are made during the offseason on whether or not Baylor has to fully make a head coaching change with Dave Aranda, whether something happens with the coaching staff as well. It's going to be an interesting offseason for Baylor, but nonetheless, just overall disappointment for the Bears on Saturday.
Yeah. Hey, listen, any day that the Baylor Bears lose, it can't be that bad of a day, in my opinion. Okay. That's the fact of the matter. I mean, hey, Austin, you know what I'm talking about, right? You got to know at least a little bit what I'm talking about. Former butt bowl enjoyer, right?
Hey, should have held on to Joey McGuire, because once he left, Baylor went.
Yep, sure.
I mean, once he left, they just didn't know what to do. I really felt like McGuire was a big part of their like recruiting game, and bringing all those guys in. He's a really good recruiter, and he's doing the same thing at Tech right now. So I mean, I don't know. Maybe he had nothing to do with it, but I feel like he might have had a little bit to do with it, in terms of not being so good.
I'm still kind of hoping that scenario is happening with basketball. Jerome Tang leaves for Manhattan, and then Baylor may or may not collapse because of that. I don't know. That's just wishful thinking on my part. Thinking on my part.
Hopefully. Well, hey, Joey Foster was wondering if we talked about it yet. We got to talk a little bit about the Mountaineers. 59-20. Man, the last game against Oklahoma does not go well. West Virginia finally, after such a long time, got their first win member against Oklahoma last year, and right back to earth this year, losing 59-20. I feel like a lot of us, certainly on the show last week when I had Trayvon Boykin on last week, we were talking about we expected an Oklahoma win. We did not expect it to be this big of a win. Did anything about this West Virginia-Oklahoma game surprise either of y'all?
I think I will say I think that just furthermore cements Dylan Gabriel as one of the top offensive players in the Big 12. Oklahoma fans for the last few weeks, they started to lose their cool with the offensive play calling against Oklahoma State, against Kansas, UCF. But they dismantled West Virginia. They had 644 yards, 59 points on the night as well. I mean, it was just a dominant performance. And at the center of it all, Dylan Gabriel. I mean, he's had several highs and lows during his time in Norman, but he might have had his best performance yet. He completed 23-36, 423 yards, 5 passing touchdowns as well. He might have it wouldn't shock me one bit if he broke a record. I just can't think of it on the top of my head, but I thought there was something going on around in Norman in regards to that as well. If you're West Virginia, it was, boy, I don't know what to say. Garrett Green went 10 of 27, 154 passing on the evening. But another reason why Oklahoma was very successful was just with the return of their tackles for loss. They collected 8 against West Virginia. Overall, Oklahoma was a better team. They had more of a talent. They were just more physical right out of the get-go. Just a disappointing result from West Virginia. And we'll see how the Mountaineers are able to wrap up their season. Besides the Oklahoma game, I believe they had a little bit of an easy stretch to kind of wrap up the season. But future with Neil Brown is still in doubt. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with West Virginia, like with Baylor as well. Kind of interested to see what happens during the offseason as well. I heard there's been a lot of rumblings with Jimbo Fisher possibly returning to West Virginia as well. We'll see what happens. Austin's in disagreement with me. We'll see. We'll see. Hey, don't shoot the messenger. I'm not saying I want this to happen. It's just the rumors coming out of Morgantown. So, but
hey, I know we got a lot of West Virginia fans that watch this show. Hey, Do y'all want Jimbo? Let me know. Hey, let me know in the comments right now. Is that something that excites you, Mr. $7 million a year man who is getting paid to sit on his couch right now?
I mean, like, I would rather be sitting on my couch, waiting for those $70 million checks to be coming in. I don't know about you. I don't know if he wants to return to coaching anytime soon.
Listen, man, we should all
enjoy the money coming out through.
We should all aspire to be fired A&M coaches, man. That's the pinnacle. That's the best. That's the American dream, right there.
That is the American dream.
Yes.
Especially these days where we're all spoiled. So, yeah.
Man, so Austin, did you have any thoughts on the game, or you want to move on to another one?
No, I'll talk about the Oklahoma game a little bit. Didn't get to watch. I only got to watch like 2 minutes of it, honestly. But went back, saw the highlights. Went back and saw the highlights, though. Oklahoma wore those special gray uniforms. Don't they usually play pretty well when they wear those? I mean, I don't know. Like, we had to play against them when they wore those uniforms, last year, and they put up 52 points. That was the return of Dylan Gabriel, and after he had been out for, I think, like, what was it, like 3 weeks last year, came back against us. Didn't have Jalen Daniels. Had to start Jason Bean. He played great, but I mean, Oklahoma absolutely dominated us last year in that particular game. Not this year, but no, I was really impressed with how Oklahoma was able to bounce back. I mean, especially going from back-to-back excruciating losses to both Kansas and Oklahoma State in likely the final Bedlam game for the foreseeable future. You'd have to think that those types of losses can, kind of, set you back, But they were able to move on from those two losses and put up a pretty good performance against a really good West Virginia team. I will say this. I didn't expect West Virginia to be as good as they were. I had them winning probably 2 or 3 games just because I'm sorry to all the West Virginia fans out there. Like, I just didn't feel good about your team. I know a lot of you guys wanted Neil Brown fired, and I thought that it was bound to happen starting off at Penn State, but you guys kept that like a 2-possession game, 3-possession game. It was pretty close. And then, after that, you guys have had a pretty dang good season. So much respect to y'all, and I think West Virginia will be okay moving forward. It's hard for them, on the road, night game, those special gray uniforms I mentioned. Yeah, you're not going to have that great of a chance to beat Oklahoma in those circumstances.
No, sir. No, sir. Another reason for Oklahoma fans to be excited after this past week is Oklahoma State's absolute destruction at the hands of UCF, of all people. 45-3. The Golden Knights in their Space U uniforms, speaking of special uniforms, getting their first win over a legacy Big 12 team, and it is a Big 12 team that looked like they could be on a collision course with Texas for the Big 12 championship. Now, hey, I said last week, I was like, I think Oklahoma State will win this game, but this feels like a trap game to me. I would not be surprised if UCF pulls off. Again, 45-3 was not anywhere in my orbit of possibility. Man, what do you take away from this Oklahoma State game?
I'll go ahead and start, I guess, since you started last time, John. I checked the score, just throughout the day. I didn't, watch anything until later on, but, it was like 14-0. And I was like, okay, 14-0, on the road, maybe Oklahoma State will come back. Oh no. Next time I checked my phone, I don't even remember what it was, but that was when UCF started to get up big. And I was like, is UCF about to beat Oklahoma State right now? Like, what in the world is going on? Did someone get injured? Did something happen? Like, you'd have to assume that something bad happened to Oklahoma State for them to be up by that much. And we beat UCF 51-22, and we lost Oklahoma State. And we talked about the parity of the Big 12 to start this thing off. I mean, that right there. Yeah, that win made absolutely no sense other than the fact that it definitely was a trap game for Oklahoma State. And there were some videos that I thought were pretty funny about the I don't know if it was John Rice Plumlee or someone else for UCF, but they're like, oh yeah, we have this amount of rushing yards and Oklahoma State only has, however many, and they have like one of the best running backs in the country. And they were absolutely trolling Oklahoma State on the sideline. But Man, how about the storming of the field though? There were like 15 people out there rushing the field after the game. It only makes sense because it was a rain. There was rain, and maybe not everyone wanted to be there for that long. But I don't know.
I believe that was their first ever field storming. I should say. I'm too used to court storming.
Really?
That was their first. From what I've been told by several UCF friends. That was their first field storming in school history. It was kind of interesting as well because the weather. I think they might have had a monsoon or something. I'm not 100% sure, but
It's just Orlando.
It's Orlando. Yeah, I mean, it's the state of Florida is just it's chaos, absolute chaos. You don't know what else is also chaotic? UCF on Saturday. There was no. I mean, they dominated. Because it was exact. I mean, they played outstanding defense for 4 quarters as they completely shut down Ollie Gordon. In fact, Ollie Gordon only had 25 rushing yards, 12 carries. It was very impressive considering that UCF's run defense was ranked near the very bottom of the FBS in terms of a rush defense. But they got off the field on 3rd down. They forced 3 turnovers early on in the game. I was kind of in agreement with you, Austin. I was like, okay, it's kind of not looking too good at the start, but I think Mike Gundy and his guys will try and come back. But I guarantee you it was a definite hangover from Bedlam. And heading into the contest, I was like, okay, maybe I think UCF can keep things competitive. They got a healthy John Rice Plumlee coming back into the lineup. It's going to be interesting. I said, give me Oklahoma State in a really close one. But this was exactly the opposite. UCF rushed for whopping nearly 300 yards. RJ Harvey ran for 200 plus, 3 touchdowns. I mean, they were just simply dominant. And on top of that, now you look at the rest of the games again. Texas Tech and Lubbock and Houston at home. Let me think. But yeah, they have 5 wins. They have a strong chance of becoming bowl eligible, which would be huge, considering that they are one of the newer members of the Big 12. And there's just really been that stereotype throughout the year that, hey, the new Big 12 teams are just not performing up to kind of a legacy Big 12 members. And now UCF, they're one win away from becoming bowl eligible. And it's against 2 teams that they can win against in Texas Tech and Houston. So overall, a dominating display from UCF. Somehow Oklahoma State's Big 12 title hopes are still alive. I don't know if you guys saw the tweet today, but the Big 12 pretty much just changed its tiebreaker rules, and it completely screwed over K-State because now Oklahoma State, they're going to have the head-to-head results as their advantage because they beat Oklahoma and they beat K-State. So they're still technically second place. If they win out, they're going to be in the Big 12 championship with Texas. Literally the worst case scenario happened to be earlier today. So nonetheless, it was a great win for UCF. Oklahoma State can't afford to screw the pooch here in their final games because the worst case scenario for the Big 12 championship game may occur with Oklahoma and Texas down in Arlington. So we'll see.
Man, all right. Well, hey, 2 more games to discuss from this past week, and then we can get into predictions. Also in first, Cincinnati. We talked about it at the top of the show. Cincinnati getting their first Big 12 win against Houston. Unfortunately, Houston just suffered some pretty significant tragedy. With the car accident and that whole situation, falling to Cincinnati 24-14. And, Houston has been very bipolar this year. Is this a question you got to ask yourself? Is Dana Holgorsen still on the hot seat? And what does this mean for Houston for the rest of the season? They're sitting at 4-6, going to have to win their last 2 if they want to win a bowl game. And they have Oklahoma State, and as you mentioned, UCF. It's looking highly unlikely that that'll happen. But do y'all have any thoughts on Cincinnati, Houston?
No,
I was pretty surprised with Cincinnati coming out on top. You think, with how decent Houston has been at times this season. Playing Texas close, for example, pulling off that
Should have beaten
unbelievable
Texas.
comeback against West Virginia. They've had some pretty good games this season. So I was a little shocked when I discovered late. I didn't find out until Sunday that Cincinnati actually beat Houston, and I was like, what in the world? So I mean, Cincinnati, they've been going through a lot, just like they just haven't, played well in games. And then I think it just kind of all came together, if you will, for them this past Saturday. I don't know who Cincinnati has. Well, we play Cincinnati after this game, but I don't know who they have this week. But
They're at West Virginia.
West Virginia.
The old Big East rivalry coming back.
Well, I saw that Cincinnati win, and now it's starting to make me wonder, we're playing at Cincinnati for their senior day. We got to be ready to play. I'm not saying that we're going to lose, but that is a sure, trap game scenario for Kansas if they aren't ready.
Yeah. So one last game, we had Iowa State taking on BYU. We talked about last week on the show. This is a must-win game for both teams as far as bowl eligibility is concerned. Iowa State comes away with the victory, 45-13 over BYU. Not something that I saw coming. I mean, Iowa State, of course, was favored in the game. I personally picked BYU to win. But, man, another blowout that I was not expecting. Any thoughts on the Clones and the Mormons, boys?
It's kind of weird to think that Iowa State was – they needed one more win to become bowl eligible, but they're still somewhat in the hunt for a Big 12 championship appearance as well. So a little bit interesting on that as well. But the game was never in doubt for Iowa State. They started hot right off the bat, forcing 2 turnovers. They put up 10 points on the board early on. Wow. It was just overall dominance. Recco Beck is starting to – he is just continued to improve week by week. He played a clean game, 15-23 for 2 touchdowns, over 200 yards. As good as Iowa State was, and really their defense as well, they did allow an early touchdown, but as good as Iowa State looked, BYU is just they have just wheeled off. They were 3-0. They came out with a win over Arkansas to start the year in Fayetteville. This team has now lost 5 out of its last 7 games, including 7 in a row. Of course, BYU's given up an average of 39 points per game in the last 3 weeks. They also let one of the worst rushing offenses in Iowa State in the Big 12 tear them up over 225 yards as well. So, again, another disappointing performance. I won't take anything away from Iowa State because they are a team that caught me by surprise throughout the season with the whole just preseason expectations. They finished last in the Big 12 a year ago, and then the gambling investigations going on there. So I wasn't expecting Iowa State to really come up and just shock everybody, but they're right here. 10 days until the regular season ends. Iowa State is they're still in the title chase. I would say.
Can you believe it?
I would say out of everybody, they probably have the biggest outside chance of making it to the Big 12 championship game. They also, who is Iowa State playing this week?
Well, we're about to talk about it.
How did I forget that? They're playing Texas.
Yes.
They got 2 big games at home. They got 2 big games in general. They got Texas and Ames. That one's gonna be hectic. Ames at night is going to be absolutely hectic. And then they go to Manhattan for the longest continuous series in college football and Farmageddon as well. So 2 very big games coming up for the Cyclones. But no doubt Matt Campbell has exceeded expectations at Iowa State. He is continuing to be a proven winner in Ames, Iowa.
Man, Farmageddon, by the way, for some reason, not a protected rivalry in the new Big 12.
I was so mad. I was so mad. I was just lighting it off on Twitter. I was, it was like, what? 100 and I can't. I'm terrible at math, but it was 115 plus years of the longest continuous rivalry. It started all the way back in 1917. We've gone through wars. We've gone through the COVID year. nothing was nothing was standing in the way of Farmageddon, and then the Big 12 office came in and they just had to ruin the fun, just like what they're doing for tiebreakers. I'm in shambles, man. I mean, it's a great rivalry.
Why couldn't we do pods? Why couldn't we just do
exactly?
pods?
Why could
easy?
Give me a Big 8 pod with Iowa State, KU, K-State, and take your pick, Colorado or Oklahoma State. That's fine.
Yeah.
Give the Texas schools their own pod, the Western schools their pod.
Yes, it's easy. It's so
that's
easy.
Big 12 offices. That's common sense. That's common sense. Something you guys have never figured. Look, the Big 12 should have also had their rivalries towards the end of the season. Well, right at the end of the season. All right. Kudos to them for putting K-State and KU kind of in this position because it's still near the end of the season. But you got to give the whatever blue bonnet battle.
Oh my God! Don't get me started on the blue bonnet boogaloo over here. Oh my God!
I knew I did.
Okay. I was gonna wait to bring this up. Okay, we do need to keep the show moving, but. So you literally take another one of the oldest rivalries in college football history, 1899 being the first meeting between TCU and Baylor. A lot of history between these two schools. Revivalry is literally the perfect name for the game. It is two historically Christian schools that were in the Southwest Conference together, and then the rivalry was revived shortly before we rejoined the Big 12. It works on several levels. You change the name to the Blue Bonnet Battle. Blue bonnets only bloom in the spring. There's literally nothing about blue bonnets unique to TCU and Baylor. What are we doing, guys? What are we doing? I mean, Austin, you're from the Panhandle, you know. God, man. What are y'all's thoughts on the Blue Bonnet Battle? What are we passionate or what are your thoughts on it?
I mean,
name, just the name.
What would have been my idea?
Well, I mean, do you approve of the name Blue Bonnet Battle? That's what I want to know.
No.
No. Okay, great.
I don't. I don't think anyone should. I mean, I don't know how many blue bonnets I've seen around the Dallas-Fort Worth area, even in Waco. I mean, it's just I don't know. The name makes no sense to me. The rivalry is a really good name for the rivalry. That's literally perfect, and it makes sense, right? Yeah, I don't know why they allowed that to happen, but
student government, man, it's your generation. Y'all are the problem. Okay,
stupid Gen Z.
I got nothing to do with student government. I wish I had some control over
it. We're still trying to figure out a Farmageddon trophy, and the ADs are doing everything in their power to just ignore it. So I don't know what's going on in this world. We as fans deserve better. As a K-State fan, I haven't visited Texas, so I can't say what a blue bonnet really is. But based on what perception,
what even is it? John wants to know.
It's
a flower that blooms for a month. It's the state flower. It's really pretty. There's fields of them. People take pictures in them and put them on Facebook, and they're around for a month and then they're gone. They're not around during football season.
Is that the state flower, Texas?
It's the state flower, yes.
That's the state flower, so kind of like the sunflower showdown. So it kind of works both
right,
ways.
Yeah. What's with all the flowers, man? Why do we all have flower names for these rivalry games? What are we doing? Okay, let's talk about Iowa State. Iowa State hosting Texas. Okay, this is a big time, exciting one. Horns all the way stinking down. We are haters on this show. I will not allow anyone who is not a certified hater on this show, okay? Texas is a 7.5-point favorite against Iowa State. Boys, I'm feeling the magic, okay? I think that Texas has been flirting with disaster for 3 weeks straight. They should have lost to Houston. They could have lost to Kansas State. They could have lost to TCU, okay? I think this is the game where the chickens come home to roost. Iowa State keeps Texas out of the college football playoff discussion, and we all go home happy. What are your thoughts on the game?
So 12 years ago to the exact date, on November 18th, 2023. What happened 12 years ago since that date? November 18th, 2011, an orange team called Oklahoma State number 2 in the country, went up to Ames. Everybody expected them to win. Oh, Brandon Whedon. Oh, and this and that, Woody, touchdown, they did it.
Dang it, I really wanted to say that. Oh.
I forgot you knew that too, but hey.
It's a group chat. It's a group
12
chat.
years later, the same exact kickoff time, in burnt orange, okay, whatever, same color. I mean, it's just a little bit of more darkness in the orange, but another orange team going up and playing, against Iowa State, who what's the record right now? Are they bowl eligible?
Yeah,
did they get bowl eligible with the win?
Iowa State. Can you not see the thing?
Yeah. My
Okay,
bad.
yeah.
I wasn't even looking at that. Okay, cool. Yeah, they got bowl eligible.
Yeah.
I mean, I think this was around the same exact spot that Iowa State was in 12 years ago with that same game too. But I don't see a reason why Iowa State, doesn't have a chance to win this game. Tough environment up there in Ames, and going into our Iowa State game, I was very, very, very scared that hey, even though we beat Oklahoma, we might lose by a lot to these guys, because the crowd up there is absolutely no joke. So
they're rolling at the right time. Jonathan Brooks is hurt. It's a home game at night. Everything could be falling into place here. It really could. It really, really could. Also, Iowa State has owned this series recently. Okay. They won 3 straight, 2019, 2021. They lost last year by 3 points. Okay. This game has Iowa State written all over it. And I'm so excited.
Another thing to point out as well, Texas just doesn't have a killer instinct. They just don't have a killer instinct factor.
They haven't had that since 2009, man.
What? Oh, yeah, that's true. That is true. But, I mean, you look at several other games, Houston, K-State, TCU. If you're Texas with that amount of talent, you got to be you got to be somewhat obliterating these guys. You got to be performing to your highest potential, but you're Texas, so that never happens with Texas. So kind of overall, my quick thoughts on the game. It is Ames. It is a very gruesome environment. It's a very, like Austin mentioned, sometimes it can get a little bit terrifying, especially when they come out in their blackout gimmick uniforms. I don't know, but even with Jonathan Brooks gone, out for the season, the Texas offense is just pretty dang good. They got Quinn Ewers back. If they had Malik Murphy as a quarterback, I could see Iowa State pulling off the upset, but I don't know. I feel like Texas is going to get away with another Mickey Mouse win.
All right, give me a score prediction real quick. Give me a score prediction, each of you.
Oh, I'm going to go Texas 27, Iowa State 24.
What do you think, Austin?
Boy, I'm going with the upset. So I'm going to go 27-24 Iowa State.
Okay, and I'll go 24-21 Iowa State. 24-21. We all think it's going to be low scoring. And I do think if the Iowa State defense bows up and keeps Texas out of the end zone, then yeah, this can absolutely be their game to win. If it's going to be low scoring, that's going to play into their favor. Okay. Next game on the docket we're talking about. We'll hold the Sunflower Showdown until last. We'll talk about UCF heading to Texas Tech. Okay, UCF is a 3-point underdog to Texas Tech, and this is one that should be all Texas Tech. I think I'm kind of a little bit surprised that it's that the line is only 3. But what are y'all's thoughts on it?
Well, Tech, they've got UCF coming in. I think UCF does have a chance. I mean, if you think about it, they were unable to pull ahead of Kansas with a third-string quarterback until the very end. So, I mean, Kansas fought hard in last week's game. I thought the run game in the second half wasn't as good as what they had in the first half. I thought the running game kind of slowed down a little bit. They did get a couple of really nice passes off, especially that one to set up the game-winning field goal. So, they might have to throw the ball around a little bit more. They like to do the wide receiver screen, and they like to play the short passing game over the middle. I think if Texas Tech does not take care of the ball and if they can't establish that dominant running game that they've had all year long, I think UCF has a chance. Look, they've got a really good running game too. They got John Rice Plumlee. I think he's decent, and I think him being out for UCF kind of held them back a little bit, especially midway through the season. Um, I mean, like Tech doesn't they don't always do a good job of defending the run. I mean, but they were able to do that for the most part against us, and then they allowed a few big runs, towards the end on last Saturday. So I mean, Texas Tech should win. This is senior night for them. Final game at home. They've got to win this game, especially for their seniors, as they are trying to win at least one more game to become bowl eligible, because they got to go play Texas in Austin next week. So they kind of have to win this game. I am going to give the game to Texas Tech, but don't be surprised if UCF continues to build up on the momentum that they had from that win against Oklahoma State.
This is going to be I think this is going to be one of those old classic Big 12 games where it's going to be one of those 50-somethings to 40-somethings, or maybe one of those 40 to 30-somethings. I think it just has that old Big 12 feeling. But I think this game is going to come down to the running to the running game, and especially for the likes of Taj Brooks of Texas Tech and UCF and RJ Harvey. Taj Brooks, he's had a resurgence over the past few weeks. He's torn up each defense he's faced. He's eclipsed for 100-yard marks of each of the past 3 games. UCF, on the other hand, RJ Harvey, I mean, he just completely torched Oklahoma State with 206 yards, 24 carries as well. I think overall, just kind of looking at each side, this one's really tough. I think it's really going to come down to the quarterback position, and we'll see what Barrett Morton's able to do. He came out of injury last week, performed fairly decent, but I just don't think he has enough firepower that John Rice Plumlee is dealing with right now. While I do expect Texas Tech it's going to be back and forth, but I think ultimately UCF, they're just going to capitalize in the final minutes with a touchdown. I got the Knights pulling this one off in an upset.
Okay, John, you're Mr. Controversial so far in these picks.
I try not to be controversial for the Texas one. It's just what's in my mind, because I just really want Iowa State to beat Texas.
Well, give me scores, you two, and then I'll tell you my thoughts. What's your score, John?
I'm going to go 38 to 34.
Okay.
I'm going to go 41 to 34 Tech.
Okay. I'm thinking high scoring as well, but much to Austin's point, it's senior night. It's at the Jones. We're getting darker earlier now, so a 4 p.m. game, it's going to be a night game in the second half, right? And UCF has not played in many places like Lubbock at night, okay? Lubbock at night, Morgantown at night, Ames at night. There's a lot of venues like this in the Big 12. They get extra rowdy, it's like a black hole, right? Hard place to get a win. I can see UCF putting up a fight, right? They're playing with a little bit of swagger right now. John Rice Plumlee's black and healthy, but I like Tech at home, especially when you think about the fact that this is more of a must-win for Tech than it is for UCF, right? If UCF's going to make a bowl game, they've still got Houston there waiting in the wings. Texas Tech now, hey, believe me, they're going to give Texas everything they've got. And, they, I'm sure, believe that they can win that Texas game. But this one, ideally, you want to get locked up. Now, if Texas Tech is looking ahead to Texas, then you're talking about a scenario that UCF could really make some hay while the sun shines. But I think Texas Tech's got this one under control. Just got a big win against Kansas. Give me Texas Tech. I think Tech covers 35-31. 35-31. All righty. Next game on the list for us. We've also got Oklahoma State at Houston. The Cowboys are a 7-point favorite against the Houston Cougars, who, are, I'm sure, aching to get back into the win column. But I don't know about you boys. I don't really see it happening this week.
I'm just going to keep this short and simple. Ollie Gordon. I think that's pretty much the 2 words. I think, honestly, Alan Bowman is going to perform much better than what he did last week. I think overall Oklahoma State's going to be ready. Mike Gundy and the team knows that they are just inches away from a Big 12 title. Like I mentioned, they got to take it one game at a time, but this Houston team has just been so incredibly inconsistent, especially on the offensive side. I got Oklahoma State not even close. I think they're going to just completely blow the brakes out of Houston, and I think this might be this game might be the true indication of Daniel Horgerson and his future down in Texas.
Yeah. What do you think, Austin? Give me a score, John. Give me a score.
Oklahoma State. Let's go. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna go 38-14.
Austin, what do you think, man?
Well, yeah, to John's point, I think Mike Gundy is going to get his guys ready to play. Obviously, last week was embarrassing, but Oklahoma State's known to bounce back after embarrassing wins, especially in the Mike Gundy area. I went down to Stillwater for the KU Oklahoma State game. I actually had a lot of fun in Stillwater. I think that was the most fun college town that I had ever been to.
Oh, it's a great place to go as a fan.
It is amazing.
I love the strip. I love the scenery just around campus. I mean, it's like it's unlike anything I've seen before. It just blew me away. And then everyone in Stillwater somehow has a connection to Oklahoma State. It's like a community. I mean, you could say the same thing maybe about Texas Tech, for example. I grew up in Lubbock, so it feels like everyone down there has a connection to Texas Tech somehow. But it's a little bit different in Stillwater. I can't really exactly point my finger as to what it is that makes everyone so connected with them. It's crazy, but that being said, I think Oklahoma State's going to come back and win this game down there in Houston. I think to John's point, Ollie Gordon is going to have himself a better game. I think Alan Bowman is going to have a better game as well, connecting. Of course, they got to establish the short passing game. I think they do a really good job of doing that, especially setting up those wide receiver screens to Brandon Presley and those guys. I got Oklahoma State winning big, but I mean, don't be shocked if Houston maybe makes it close at one point. But I think Oklahoma State will pull away at the very end. Should it somehow be a close game? Give me the Pokes. I'm gonna say 35-17.
Yeah, I mean, this spread feels like easy money, right? I mean, of course, I say that as in the middle of the most Mike Gundy season in the history of Mike Gundy. And, it's probably not going to happen. But I see this kind of being almost a reverse of last week, right? I'm thinking 45-13, Oklahoma State. We are who we thought they were. They are who we thought they were. Ollie Gordon goes off. And, just to y'all's point, we are starting to hear a little bit more of the Fire Dana talk maybe going on in Houston. I think probably a lot of Houston fans are hoping that they don't make a bowl game because they're worried that means it's going to keep Dana down. Okay, let's talk about let's trust the climb a little bit here, boys. Let's talk about West Virginia, Cincinnati, the renewing of an old Big East rivalry. Another shocking spread, if you ask me. Cincinnati only a 6.5-point underdog going to Morgantown on Saturday afternoon. I mean, is there a world in which Cincinnati even covers this spread? I mean, I guess it is a rivalry game, but they have not looked good this year. Am I wrong?
No. There was an article that came out a week ago, and it came out as if there was many pointing fingers between the players and the coaches on Cincinnati. It's a hot mess in Cincinnati. They did come away with a big win over Houston on the road. Maybe take something for what that's worth as well. But they're going into Morgantown. It's a revival of an old Big East rivalry. I'm sure West Virginia fans are pretty happy about that as well. But
it's a travel partner, right? Holy crap!
Travel partner. Hey, we need more of those these days. But I don't know. Since I don't think Emory Jones is a Big 12 built quarterback. I just don't have a whole lot of faith in Scott Satterfield. I got West Virginia, and they're going to cover. I mean, they're going to cover. I mean, out of all the bets in the Big 12, that might be the safest one this weekend.
Yeah, pretty surprised by the by the line for sure. I think it has a lot to do with Houston, or dropping that game to Cincinnati. Cincinnati coming out with a big win. Maybe that has something to do with it. I don't really know. Rivalry game 2. I kind of forgot that they were Big East rivals before. So, but I think West Virginia is very upset with what happened in Norman this past weekend, and I think that they're going to be ready to play. Afternoon game in Morgantown, they typically have a pretty good environment for afternoon games. I think West Virginia is going to win big. Now, kind of like the Oklahoma State-Houston game, maybe don't be surprised if Cincinnati, at one point makes it a one-possession game, but it won't last very long. I got West Virginia winning big.
Yeah. This, like I said, Big East rivals. This is the first meeting of these two teams since 2011. They split the last 4 meetings. Cincinnati won back-to-back in 2008, 2009. That 2009 season, y'all may not remember, but Cincinnati ended up in a BCS Bowl that year. And then West Virginia won back-to-back in 2010, 2011. They were both, perennial BCS Bowl contenders there in the Big East in those days. So, yeah, I agree with you. I think West Virginia, they're the significantly better team on paper. They've had a significantly better year. I'm trusting the climb on this one. I think they cover the spread. I'm honestly thinking like 38-17, man. I don't think it's going to be all that exciting for either side. 38-17 West Virginia. Okie doke. Let me see now. Okay. Oklahoma visiting BYU. This is our biggest point spread of the weekend. The Sooners are favored by 24 points, 24.5 points against BYU. These two have had a couple interesting meetings in the past. I don't think this is going to be one of them. I think that spread's right on the money, even though BYU just needs one win to get into a bowl game. They have just been trending down so bad. Their secondary is rough. But it's hard to say if Oklahoma's going to cover a 24-point spread. What do y'all think?
Yeah, I think it's going to be hard. 24-point spread, that's huge, especially for them. Like, I get it. Iowa State went into Provo and got the big-time win. So it's not impossible to go into Provo and walk away with a big win. Iowa State proved it. Man, I don't know. 11 a.m. kickoff. Maybe there will be it's a morning game, and last time they played a morning game didn't really work out too well for them, right? But that being said, I think Oklahoma is significantly right now a better team than what they were a couple weeks ago. But man, I don't know if they're going to win by more than 24.5 points. I think BYU is going to cover, but Oklahoma's still going to get the win. But I think the biggest question is going to be, I don't know if Caden Slovis is going to be back for the Cougars this week or not. I knew he was out last week and the week before. I don't know what his status is. I knew that he was warming up in pads right before the Iowa State game. So, I mean, I don't know. I feel like if they get him back, maybe BYU has a chance perhaps. I mean, he's one of the leaders on the team. And, kind of like what I alluded to earlier, having your starting quarterback out there, I was talking about that with Quinn Ewers, like having your starting quarterback back out there, gives you a little bit more confidence, and because you have your leader back. But, if Slovis doesn't come back, then I do think Oklahoma will win big, but 24-point spread, a little bit of a head scratcher, especially with it being a morning game up in Provo, where it's still a tough place to walk out with a win.
Well, and Steve pointed out 10 a.m. local time, right? 10 a.m. local time.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. I keep forgetting about the time zones.
Yeah.
But I've got Oklahoma winning this game. If I had to give a score prediction, I think I'd go. Let's see here. I think I'd probably go like 37-23, maybe.
Okay, John, what do you think?
I think that's good.
If we're seeing the same Oklahoma team as we saw last week, and if we're seeing the same BYU team that we saw last week, I don't think this game is going to be any close whatsoever. You know what? What is it? 24 and a half?
24 and a half, yes.
I think they're going to cover. I think Oklahoma's going to cover. I've just been Very impressed with what we've seen against with Dylan Gabriel. I mean, he wasn't all that sharp against West Virginia, but the offense, I mean, the receivers, the rushing game, it took some major strides against the Mountaineers last week. BYU, I mean, I'm starting to just, I mean, it's just been a monopoly for BYU, whether it's in the Big 12 or independent. I mean, they'll start off the year strong, but they just they just fall off a map and just barely get a bowl eligible. I mean, it's kind of it's just been kind of a synchronicity I'm seeing a little bit from BYU throughout the past few years. I just don't know if Kalani Sitake's got to make several staff changes. It's just not panned out. I think it's a 10 a.m. local kick. I know it's going to be one that BYU fans have been wanting to see for a long time with Oklahoma in Lavelle Edwards Stadium, but I'm not seeing it from BYU. If their offense continues to tread water, I got Oklahoma blowing them out of the woodshed.
Okay. Well, from what I just saw, Caden Slovis is still questionable for this game. Yeah, it's going to be an Oklahoma blowout, but just because I'm feeling spicy, I think BYU gets the backdoor cover here. Scores some nonsense late in the game to just really ruin
garbage time touchdown.
I'm thinking like 45-22, right? There's just some nonsense that occurs. There's a 2-point conversion in there, and BYU gets the backdoor cover despite getting blown out. That's how I see it happening. 10 a.m. game. It's not going to be completely without a hitch. It can't be completely without a hitch.
Right.
All right, let's talk rivalry. I got my Frogs hat on. I'm not going to call it that stupid flower-related name, okay? Frogs are a 13-point favorite at home against the Baylor Bears. If Frogs are going to go bowling, we got to win this one, and we got to win next week. We are due a win, man. This game is always crazy. I mean, look at last year with Bazooka and everything. There's always something, doesn't matter how good both teams are. Something's going to go down that's wild. But I'm feeling confident in this game. But, I got purple-colored glasses on. What do you boys think?
Purple shade glasses. Is this game's in Fort Worth, correct? It is
in Fort Worth, yes.
It's in Fort Worth. It's at Hell's Half Acre. So, I don't know. Baylor's it continues to be a hot mess. I think Blake Shapen, for the most part, last week in Manhattan, he did pretty decent. I will give Baylor that. I mean, they will continue to. I mean, they will continue to show Blake Shapen, for that matter, will continue to show the amount of grit and determination and some toughness, even though Baylor's offensive line has been pretty much a soft piece of toilet paper. But I don't know. I mean, this has TCU all over it for me. I don't think it's going to be a blowout, but I think TCU is going to get going early. Maybe a third quarter. Maybe Baylor makes things interesting in the third quarter, but I got TCU winning this one.
Worth noting, by the way, boys, the Frogs are going to be wearing brand new helmets for this game.
Those are really
these boys right here. Ooh. So that's a classic 60s logo that they've given the bloodline treatment. So just another wrinkle involved in this year's game.
I like the pattern with it too. It just looks great. It looks great.
Yeah,
I'm undecided, to be honest. I'm undecided.
I'm not a fan of a red.
I like it personally. I'm a fan.
What are your thoughts on the game, Austin?
Yeah, TCU has to win this game, right? After coming up short against Texas, they get another opportunity at home against one of their rivals. I anticipate TCU having a pretty decent game as long as they can get off to a good start. I don't see a reason why they would fall behind to Baylor. To John's point, Shapen didn't play too terrible in Manhattan, but at the same time, if it's just Shapen, then it's not going to necessarily work out. So I got TCU winning big here. 13-point spread. It looks like. I think TCU will beat them by more than 13 personally. I'd maybe get a touchdown late and create that separation, but I got the Frogs winning big.
Yeah. So here's the thing. The only legacy Big 12 team that's been more of a mess than us this year has been Baylor, right? And Josh Hoover has been improving every single week, I think. As frustrated as I was by the outcome of that Texas game, there were good things that happened, and there's reasons to be optimistic. Leaving that game, you got the new you got the new helmet. You've got a rivalry game. You've got a must-win to make a bowl. I have every confidence in the Frogs, despite the better angels of my nature. I do think that we cover the spread. I think this could be. Let's see. I think this could be like a 42-21 game. Honestly, I see the offense getting going. If Savion stays on the trajectory he's on, if Josh Hoover, if Amani Bailey stay on the trajectory they're on, if we get decent blocking from our offensive line, I think that we could easily run away with this one. Baylor's just that bad this year. That's personally my thoughts on it. So it's the moment that you all have been waiting for. The whole reason I brought these two boys on. We're going to talk Sunflower Showdown, okay?
Woo!
And it's a big one this year. You've got two ranked teams. I mean, we have the new college football playoff rankings haven't come out yet. I assume they're both still going to be ranked going into the game. Kansas State at Kansas. Both teams very much still in the conversation for the Big 12 title game, depending on how chaotic things get. Kansas State is an 8-point favorite on the road in Lawrence. And I've got my two hats here for me to have my Lee Corso moment here in a moment. But boys, why don't you talk about it? Tell me what your thoughts are on the game.
Oh, man. Well, I'm just going to start off with this. Playing Kansas in the in-state rivalry means the game is going to carry a little bit more importance than usual. K-State, for those who know, they have over 50 players that hail from a Sunflower State, and even out-of-state players know the importance of the game as well because of the amount of in-state players on the roster. However, here's even more. It's going to be a little bit more of an important factor for every K-State player. The Wildcats have prepared the same way they have been preparing to beat Kansas throughout the years. Cooper Beebe mentioned it during today's press conferences that he takes a tremendous amount of pride in the Sunflower Showdown. The senior offensive lineman says it's nice to show off for Kansas on the national level because of the players from the state that are at times overlooked, and something that we've seen throughout the past few years, whether it's under the David Beatty era, the Les Miles era, the who was the other? I can't think of it. This K-State passing game is coming along. They've been a bit of a heater throughout the last few games. Will Howard's thrown for 880 yards, 12 touchdowns, only one interception in the last 4 games as well. I mean, he is starting to connect with all of his receivers, and the run game is certainly effective as well. And then on the other side of things, Kansas has one of the best defensive lines. Austin, we'll get to you here in a second in regards to that. But, the Jayhawks are right now second in total sacks with 25. Austin Booker is tied for third in the conference of sacks this season with 7 as well. It's going to be physical. It's going to be a battle in the trenches for sure. If Kansas's defense is able to provide a lot of pressure early, it could be very interesting to see what happens. But, of course, another factor you're going to have to look at is what's going to play into factor with the Kansas quarterback situation. We've heard several times throughout the day, it's just been kind of a combination between Jason Bean and the freshman Cole Ballard as well. So, overall, that's sort of my overview. I mean, Clint, if you want me to, I can kind of throw in some keys and how K-State wants to be successful as well. Or
please,
I mean,
yeah. We've gone long, but as long as y'all are still down to keep clowning, I'm good.
So I will really mention two. I will mention actually. I'll mention 3 keys to the game. 2 of which will reside on the. I mean, well. I'll do one for offense defense. So one is really just display what you had against Baylor. Just open up a passing game, get more connections with receivers. We've seen a much more impressive display of dominance for the past 2 games with Texas and Baylor. Get the receiving game open and with the likes of Ben Sinnott, Jace Brown, Trayshawn Ward, DJ Gittens, even in the passing game as well. Keegan Johnson as well has been one of the top primary targets for Will Howard as well. On the defensive side, you can't have any slow starts, especially against this Kansas offense where they are poised to run the ball with Devin Neal and Daniel Henshaw as well. That could open up some holes. If Kansas's offense gets going, it's going to be very competitive, possibly near the third and fourth quarter as well. And then possibly the other key to the game as well is special teams, because little do many fans know that K-State's going up against one of K-State's greats, and Sean Snyder, because now he is in Lawrence and he's doing some God's work for Kansas special teams as well. And we've seen a lot of struggles this year with K-State special teams, in particular in the kicking game with Chris Tennant. I mean, we just got to see a much improved performance on the special teams part. It's going to be interesting to see what happens. I'm looking for the Wildcat defense to be stellar and the offense just continuing to do what it's able to do in the passing game, especially.
You gonna give me a score prediction, John?
Oh, well, I was gonna kind of save that. I thought.
Okay. Let's hear from Austin.
I have a little bit of a Lee Corso moment too. So.
Okay. What do you think, Austin? What do you think about the game?
Well, this is probably the biggest Sunflower Showdown game that we've had since 2007. I know last time we beat them was in 2008 and all that. That was the biggest game that this rivalry has seen in football, I think, since. Last year, I think most people probably anticipated it to be a decent game, but Jalen Daniels playing, you're coming off of an injury, didn't really play that well against Texas the week before, and then he got hurt throughout the game, I believe, off of a touchdown, and it didn't really look that great towards the end. But boy, we got a lot to talk about. First off, I do want to say this though, about Kansas State. They, no Deuce Vaughn, no problem. They have two running backs in DJ Giddens and Trayshawn Ward that have been excellent this season. Those guys have done a good job of filling in for Deuce Vaughn's shoes. I mean, every time the past, couple of years that we've played Kansas State, Deuce Vaughn has been the biggest reason why they've won those games, and kudos to them. But they still got a really good running game. It'll be interesting to see if Avery Johnson, the freshman quarterback, gets in for a few snaps and takes off for a couple of quarterback runs and what have you. I know he hasn't seen a whole lot of action recently, but Kansas, over the course of the season hasn't done too much of a good job of stopping the run, but they have recently. But I'd be curious to see what their run, their running game plans are for Kansas State. So that's going to be, a tall task for our defense coming up. We've played really well these past three games, in my opinion, and we got to keep that going. Now, about the quarterback situation, Jason Bean. Right now, his status is kind of up in the air. I really think tomorrow, if he returns to practice tomorrow, I think it'll be a good indication of whether or not he'll be available. I mean, he could be healthy, Thursday or Friday. But what I've kind of learned about Lance Leipold, our head coach, he's very consistent, especially when it comes to like injuries and such. Like if you're not ready by the start of the week, you're more than likely not going to be able to play. And, we saw Mello Dotson, one of our cornerbacks, had a concussion against Iowa State, and he came back and played for the Oklahoma game. But I think with, Bean's situation, it's a little bit more complicated because, you want to plan all week long for a guy, at quarterback. So, Leipold came out this morning on A10 Sports Radio and said that, Bean's basically making progress. He heard good news that, Bean is making progress. Didn't practice on Sunday, which is the day after the game. I mean, why would you throw him out there and practice, especially after the injury that he had to endure against Texas Tech? But I think Wednesday, determining, whether or not, he practices, I think will be a good indication. But I talked a little bit about how good Cole Ballard was. I know he only threw 9 out of 20, completed passes, but I thought he made some nice throws. He had a couple of quarterback runs that I think, really got the crowd engaged and really hyped the team up. So, that was one of my takeaways from last week's game that I thought were positive. But this Kansas defense, they've been playing real well recently, and they've got a big task ahead of them. They're going up against a really good quarterback in Will Howard, and I got to give him credit. At the start of the season, didn't really do well. That Oklahoma State game, a lot of fans really wanted Avery Johnson to start for the rest of the season. And I think Howard, heard all those people and said, all right, bet. And he's just been lights out ever since that Oklahoma State game. So I got to give him credit, and congratulations to him for breaking the K-State passing touchdown record. I thought that was pretty cool, just seeing from the outside. But it's going to be interesting to see what happens with the quarterback situation come Saturday. In warmups, when the team goes out there and does their little walkthrough before they go into the locker room, before they come back out, right before the game. I think it'll be a good indication of who's going to take those. Who's going to start. Either way, I am confident in KU's chances because let me point this out as well. This is the final time that we are going to be playing at our stadium before they start doing the massive stadium renovations that are going to be happening at the end of the season. This is the last time that this stadium is going to experience a football game. It's a big deal. Senior night, too. It's not only senior night for the players, but it's senior night for a football stadium. And yes, I will admit it's not one of the best in the country, but it's about to be in 2 years from now. It's going to be really nice. I can't wait to see how the new stadium turns out. If you guys want to go look at the renderings, it is absolutely unbelievable. Not only are they going to be transforming the stadium, but they're also going to be building some sort of a district outside the stadium. They're going to be building a convention center right next door. And then they're going to be building some student housing right behind it as well. It's going to be really nice when everything's all said and done. But final game at the booth is what we like to call our stadium, the booth. Sold out crowd. Fans are going to be ready. The one thing that gives me confidence about this weekend's game is just the fact that this team has showed no quit at all this season. Unlike what we've seen from the past, 10 plus Kansas teams that we've seen take the field, when adversity strikes them, they don't back down and quit and just give up. We've seen that happen in the past with past Kansas teams. This year's team doesn't do that. And a big reason why is because of head coach Lance Leipold. And going from 2-10 to 6-7 to now 7-3 in his third year at this point, I got to say that's pretty dang good after spending the past however long it was of sucking. That's incredible, and I hope we give him a lifetime contract at some point. May not be after this season, but I want to make sure we lock him up, for as long as possible. He did come out a couple of days before the Texas Tech game and said, "Hey, this is the job that I want to keep. This is where I want to be until it's all said and done. This is the last job I want to have." He pretty much made that clear because everyone's been talking about him being a candidate at Michigan State and some of these other jobs, and he came out and said, "Yeah, have not done any interviews." And, the interview that he was doing when he announced that, he was like, "This is the only interview I'm doing. This is the only set of interviews that I'm going to do moving forward." So, but I really hope at the same time we're able to hang on to him until he decides he doesn't want to coach anymore. But this team does not show any quit. And no matter what happens throughout the game, we saw it last week against Texas Tech, losing Jason Bean. They could have easily given up 40 points after that, make it a blowout game. That's what Kansas used to do. Well, not anymore. This team is going to be ready to play regardless of who comes out there at quarterback. I do see them giving the ball to Daniel Highshaw and Devin Neal. I think they're going to have to, find a way to get, Cole Ballard some passes off. I think he's able to do that. He completed some really nice passes to Lawrence Arnold. We've got guys on the outside that can help him make plays, and Lawrence Arnold and Quentin Skinner. Those two guys have been unbelievable. I believe Luke Grimm is going to be able to play. They've got some, look, these are guys that you don't hear about, just in the national, media and everything. These are guys that, you probably don't hear of that much, when it comes to Big 12 wide receivers. But we've got an underrated, group of wide receivers on this team. But it's all going to come down to execution. And defensively, it's going to be about slowing down the run game and creating turnovers. And I'll end this with one fun fact. Kansas is undefeated this season when they've scored first. And they didn't score first against Texas Tech. What happened? They lost. In the Texas and Oklahoma State game, they didn't score first. They lost those games. And all the rest of the games that they've played in which they've won, they scored first. They scored first against Oklahoma, went on and pulled off the upset. So my biggest thing is if they can score first, they will put themselves in a great position to kind of take control of the game, if you will. But that being said, Kansas State is a very good team. They are very physical on both sides of the ball. It's all going to come down to who wins the battle up front. I mean, both fronts on both ends for both of these teams are really, really good. So I'm excited to see how that battle comes out in the trenches. And whoever comes out on top, just with the battle up front, I think will be the winner of this game. But I do have confidence in Kansas, playing really well at least. I think this team has, much more confidence than I think that this program has experienced in a very, very long time. It being the final game at our football stadium before stadium renovations begin and senior night game. I also want to bring this up too. The last time KU hosted Kansas State on a Saturday night, they won back in 2004. They won that game 31-28.
I was going to say, you said Saturday night because the last time K-State marched into Lawrence was on prime time was
Thursday
on
night.
Thursday night. That's right.
59-7. Yep.
Absolutely.
All right, boys. So give me your score predictions, and then I'll let you know my thoughts.
Can we go first?
Go ahead, Austin. Go first.
Okay. I'm rolling with my Jayhawks. Give me the Hawks to finally snap the 14-game losing streak. Man, this is tough. It's all going to come down to if Jason Bean, is ready to play. I still think they have a chance with Ballard out there. Maybe not as good of a chance, but I think they'll still put up a good fight. Give me the Jayhawks. I'm going to go 31-27.
All right. This prediction, just a heads up, it could go horribly wrong. Depending on who's starting under center for Kansas, whether it's Jason Bean or Connor or Ballard. I'm led to believe right now that Jason Bean will not be in this matchup. This is just what I've heard, but we've seen crazier things happen before in college football. That being said, I don't know, boys. It's just a lot of momentum surge for this K-State squad. I mean, but just besides the Texas game, we've seen this offensive explosion, especially with the passing game, as just tremendously opened up. The defense may have a few possessions or two where it starts off pretty slow, but they get it together. They are physical. They are athletic on the secondary side of things. I'm sorry, boys. I'm going. Hold on, if I can just drag it down. Cats. Austin, with all due respect, I think the Cats are going to get their 15th win in the Sunflower Showdown. I think Kansas will be pretty effective on the ground early on. But I think K-State's defense is going to find an answer here real quick. Like I mentioned, it's going to be interesting to see who's able to line up under center, because if we're going to see Ballard line up under center, we've seen K-State's lined up against several freshman quarterbacks throughout the season, and they have not played to possibly their best. They have not performed to their best against K-State. They have just quickly shut them down, providing a lot of pressure. And on top of that, it's just what's the best way of putting it? It's just overall it's all about. I mean, it's just all about what it really is. What the Sunflower Showdown is. Just the overall inspiration to play the game. It's just the Sunflower Showdown. One of the greater rivalries, but it's going to be one that many players in the state of Kansas are going to carry throughout their college careers. Like I mentioned, 52 players from the Sunflower State. There's going to be a lot of them, especially on the lines, in the lines and the trenches. I think this is going to be one of their most tremendous amount of pride type of games. I got K-State winning this one. I'm going to go – I think it's going to be closer than anticipated, but I'm going to go K-State. I'm going to go 37-20. K-State gets it done.
Okay. All right. Y'all made some excellent points, okay, across the board. One thing that I wanted to mention that neither of y'all mentioned, okay, Kansas State has, when they're playing in games that they're supposed to win, they've dominated, right? Against bad opponents, Kansas State has looked outstanding, without question. Where they have struggled is against good teams on the road, okay? If you look at Missouri, 27-30, that's a loss, right? At Oklahoma State, 29-21, that's a loss. At Texas, 33-30, that's a loss. Here we go again. Big rivalry game, the biggest Sunflower Showdown in recent memory against a good Kansas team that's ranked. That is something that I think if you're a Kansas State fan should have you just a little bit worried. If you're a Kansas fan, that should be something that builds your confidence. Here's the thing, though. Kansas State, I think this 8-point spread is very fair. I think Kansas State is a very solid team. They've got an outstanding offensive line. And personally, I think they've got the best coach in the entire Big 12 in Chris Kleiman. Kansas State should win this game. They're not gonna, okay? Kansas is going to win this game. 14 point. 14.
No!
Okay. The Kansas Jayhawks have not won since 2008. Okay. The great Orange Bowl year in 2007, the year before that. They are freaking due. Okay. If Jason Bean plays, here's the thing. If Jason Bean plays, Kansas wins this game. I think it's an instant classic, 35-34. I cannot wait to watch it. It's going to be very fun, and Big 12 parity strikes again. Now Kansas State fans won't have to be worried about, well, we got the tiebreaker with Texas and Oklahoma State. It ain't gonna matter after this weekend because Kansas.
You did bring up a great point, Clint. And this is another key that I forgot to point out as well. You're right. K-State against several of the solid teams that they've seen throughout the year. They've struggled, and it's not just really with several of the players' performances, but it also comes down to the coaching decisions as well as really just haunted K-State. Just a lot of conservative play calls early on. Sometimes, I mean, you see a lot of aggressive nature from the coaches. They just want to win the game. They're not there to compete. They're there to win, and that's the mindset of Chris Kleiman as well. But if we're seeing conservative play calls early on against a really good Kansas squad, if we're getting too aggressive at the wrong time, then I see a strong possibility that Kansas is able to pull it out. But man, I'm a little bit it's a little gut wrench there, Clint.
That's what I see happen. The good juju, you can't deny the college football magic. Okay, the momentum, whatever intangible word you want to ascribe to it, it is 100% on Kansas's side. The numbers, the stats, that's on Kansas State's side, with the exception of those big game losses. But Kansas has all the magic factor, man. You've got the 14-game losing streak, last game in the stadium before it gets torn down. Opportunity to try and stay in the Big 12 title race. I just feel it, man. I feel the Jayhawk magic. I'm a believer this year. I'm a believer.
Boys, baby.
We'll see.
Thank y'all so much for being here, for being with me for an hour and a half, man. We could have watched a movie in the amount of time that we've been doing the Big 12. But this has been a movie, right?
This is a movie.
This week was a movie.
It was a movie.
Yes, the best movie. Boys, thank you so much for joining me. Really quick before we go, tell the people where they can find you.
Austin, go ahead.
Okay. You guys can follow me on Twitter at Austin C. Eckert. You guys can also follow me on Instagram at austin.eckert. I'll do a little plug here. Make sure to follow KJHK Sports on both Twitter and Instagram. We've got such a great group of aspiring broadcasters like myself that are trying to get themselves into this industry and that are trying to put themselves out there. So be sure to follow those guys as well. I just want to give them a special shout out. But yeah, follow me on Twitter at Austin C. Eckert. I will say this. I have experienced an influx of followers lately for some reason. I don't know why. I think it all started when I posted my thoughts after the Oklahoma State game because of just the ending that happened. And I was like, look, should have been this call, there should have been that call, but hey, we did not play well. And then I think a lot of Oklahoma State fans were like, oh, we have an actual, reasonable Jayhawk fan that, is looking at it the right way, And then and then just everyone else, just kind of started following me along the way. But if you'd like to be a part of it, follow me on Twitter at Austin C. Eckert. Also follow me on Instagram at austin.eckert. So that's my plug. Appreciate you, Clint, for having me on the show. It's going to be exciting on Saturday. I can't wait. I've got a buddy that just graduated from KU that's coming down. He's one of my best friends. He's making the trip down for the game. Very excited to go to the game with him. I'm going to be having a few beverages myself. I am 22, by the way, for those of you who don't know. But it's going to be a fun day. I can't wait. I'm trying to get all my homework done right before Friday or like on Friday at least. So that way I don't have to worry about it this weekend because guess what? My eyes are on this football game. So anything else, if you got something you want to talk to me about, deal with, whatever, make sure to do that with me by Friday because Saturday I'm focused on the game. I don't got time for all that other bullcrap. Okay. This is the biggest Sunflower Showdown game in 15 years. Dang it. Like I don't care what else is going on. That's what I'm focused on Saturday. So trying to get all my stuff done this week before Saturday because that's all I'm going to be worried about. And it's going to be a great time. Kansas State is still a very good team at the end of the day. I just do want to make that clear. They have just as good of a chance to win this game as Kansas does, especially with all the storylines surrounding them. But I do want to just say that. But very excited about the game on Saturday. I can't wait.
All right. Plug your stuff, John.
There's the reasonable Kansas fans and the Kansas State fans, and then there's just this complete toxicity towards it's a war zone, Clint. It's a war zone. You're missing out on all the action, but anyways. You guys can follow me personally, John Grove 02 on Instagram and Twitter. Once again, John Grove 02 on Instagram and Twitter. But for those you can see on the bottom right here, let's see, yeah, that right there. You guys can follow K-State Game Day on Instagram, one of the top fan pages for K-State sports on Instagram. I'm getting a phone call real quick. I got to decline. Here we go. But K-State Game Day. It's currently, if I'm able to pull up my phone, it's currently at 7,000 plus followers. So you won't want to miss out on all the action. We're covering not just football. We're covering men's basketball. We're covering women's basketball for that matter too. Maybe I might make a post about college football playoff rankings. We'll see. But it's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be a lot of fun. Also, while you did mention it, Austin, I also want to give a shout out as well to our student radio station in Manhattan and Wildcat 91.9. You guys can follow Wildcat 91.9 FM on Instagram and Twitter. We have a lot of great content. Pouring out, whether it's with sports talk shows, pop culture shows. We broadcast football games as well. We might make the trip to Lawrence possibly. We'll have to see what our financial situation is, but we might be hitting the road to Lawrence. I don't know if I'm going to be on the call for that, but we'll see. But for those who are on social media, follow Wildcat 91.9 FM on Instagram, Twitter, and Threads as well. I don't know why somebody started a Threads account, but so it goes. Nonetheless, Clint, it was an absolute blast to talk more Big 12 sports with you. Austin, it was great to chat with you as always. A little bit of good old fun K-State KU banter prior to the game on Saturday, and you mentioned that as well. I'll mention it right back. Kansas is on the resurgence of the ultimate comeback of a comeback era, like the revival of what Lance Leopold has done for the Kansas football program has been nothing short of a miracle. Both Sunflower schools are on an upward trajectory here in the near future. I am very excited to see what goes down on Saturday.
All right. Thanks again so much, boys, for joining me. And thank you out there for tuning in. It's every Tuesday here, the biggest 12. You know what it is. It's the funnest show about the Big 12 on the internet. Arguably the only show about the Big 12 on the internet. I mean, I can't verify that, but I think it's probably true. So it's every Tuesday night at 6 o'clock. Thanks to Austin. Thanks to John. Subscribe at Big 12 TFB. Like this video, share it with your mom, share it with your grandma, share it with your dad, share it with your cousins. Grow the show. We want to take this thing global, okay? I want people in Thailand to know what's happening in the Big 12 on a week-to-week basis. Follow me on Twitter at Clint_Foster55. Follow my YouTube channel at Clint Foster Comedy. My plan is to go ahead and shoot my TCU fans video for this past weekend right now. I know I'm behind. I got to go pick up my wife from the airport. There's a lot going on in my life right now. But thank you so much for being with us. Until next time, I hope your team wins. And go Big 12, go Frogs.
That's my 90.
Let's go Hawks.
Yeah.
Rock Chalk.